Jeremy is now the latest individual that I've sussed about Rodgers, and and we asked about that Schefter tweet, that post that came out of him pointing out that there's been no first round picks traded in this draft. Mm-hmm. And the last time we were this close to a draft, and we're 34 days away, that we haven't seen a first round selection traded, was when the Chiefs gave up a first rounder for Joe Montana 5 days before that draft that they acquired. Joe Montana was at 93 or something like that. I think I've finally put my finger on it here. So the Titans are grinding their tape on Cam Ward and Shador and Abdul Carter and Travis Hunter.
And probably their own guy, Will Levis.
Correct. They're going through this process. The Browns are sitting there at 2. They're doing the same thing. Mm-hmm. Having averted total and complete disaster with Myles Garrett. Holdout hell. Okay, they avert that. They bring in Kenny Pickett via trade. Mm-hmm. So they've got one in the building. They bring in Russ. They're deciding who else are they going to bring in while grinding tape on the quarterbacks to also figure out, do they trade up to go to one to end the story and get their guy and not have to depend on Tennessee's choices? And also monitoring what might be going on with Kirk Cousins. And Atlanta is chilling like the proverbial villain. Okay? They are chilling. The deadline that some people thought might spur action last Saturday, if he's on the roster, $10 million in 2026 become guaranteed. The Falcons are like, whatever. We've already spent $100 million on this guy. He didn't even give us a full season. He was benched. And we've got a kid that we're going to start with an injury history. And who better to have sitting around to teach the kid and also maybe fill in for the kid than Kirk Cousins? He may not like it, but too bad. Unless somebody gets desperate. And the people who could potentially get desperate are sitting there in New Jersey in the Giants' offices, because the Jets aren't desperate. They went ahead and they got their kid, Justin Fields, and they'll figure out what the draft is there. They're not trading up for a quarterback. The Raiders get Geno Smith. They're not desperate like last year, right? Mm-hmm. They're out of that business. They're not trading up for a quarterback. The Saints are sitting there at 9. I mean, they're not going to trade up for a quarterback. One wouldn't think, but they could. But there's no desperate reason to do so because they've handled their car business, right? So they're not desperate. Who could be desperate? The Giants. Now, that's a desperate team, potentially. And the Steelers, if they feel desperate. Now, they could sit here and say, Mason Rudolph, we're fine going with that. But we've seen that movie before. And they might get Russ or might not get Russ, but Russ isn't being snapped up by anybody right now because they're waiting on Rodgers. Sitting here in California staring at sunrises. And until he makes a decision, nobody's going to get desperate enough to call the Titans and say, what's up?
Right.
And if he just chooses the Steelers and the Giants get desperate, does that make Cleveland more desperate? Uh-oh. They might be burning the phones up to Tennessee. We got to get on that. Right? So we're waiting on Rodgers. And I think that's the logjam at this. Nobody's trading a first-round selection. Plus, I guess people are still grinding tape on the quarterbacks. Nobody is all in on Cam Ward like he's Caleb or Trevor Lawrence back in the day. No one's in on him to say or Goff or Wentz, where the Eagles had a hopscotch up 2 spots all the way from the middle of the draft. Nobody's starting to move around to position themselves right before the draft to move up again. I think I've gotten this right. Until Rodgers decides what's up, no one's going to, he's kind of frozen everything in time right now. I think I'm not missing any pieces here. Like, that's what's going on until he decides and makes a decision and turns a team, or if he retires, potentially two teams into someone more desperate. Now, the Steelers might be like, we can just stick and pick our quarterback if we love Dart or Shuck, because they should be around 21. And if they're not, on draft night, they could move up on draft night if they're like, okay, he's close enough, we love him enough, let's go up 4 or 5 spots and go get him. The Giants have the luxury of potentially sticking and picking? Possibly? Because if the Browns want Ward, but not enough to go get him, and Ward's gone, and they're sitting there at 2, and the choice is Abdul Carter, Travis Hunter, Shedeur Sanders, do they maybe go Travis Hunter and say,
right,
let's go, we've got a unicorn here to go with a lot of other talented players? Sure, we don't have the quarterback thing figured out, but we do have the 33rd overall pick, second night, first pickup. Do we trade back in at the end of the first round to get the guy that we want? Do we not? The Giants could stick and pick, or do they get desperate if Rodgers says no to them? And they don't go and get Kirk Cousins from Atlanta, because it would be cheaper to get Kirk Cousins from Atlanta monetarily and draft capital than it would be to trade up to go get Shedeur or Cam. And you can win games now and maybe get your guy later on in the draft too. This is why I think everything's frozen in time. Catch the Rich Eisen Show live weekdays from 12 to 3 p.m. Eastern on Roku Sports Channel in the U.S.